was your favorite general?
One of my favorites is a man named Pat Cleburne, who was born in Ireland and lived in Arkansas. He fought out west in Tennessee and in Georgia. He dies near Nashville. I liked him because he was very interested in trying to find as many soldiers as possible, and he was willing to tell the Confederate Army they needed to arm and free their slaves when most would not. That's my favorite, actually.
How do you think our country would be different if the South had won, and do you think there would still be slavery?
I certainly hope there wouldn't still be slavery. The Civil War forced both North and South during the war to centralize their government significantly. They had to raise a lot more taxes. They grew the size of government dramatically. I think we get a much more modern looking government because of the Civil War. Also, Lincoln managed to recommit us to the idea in the Declaration that all men are created equal. And while we see that most clearly in the Emancipation Proclamation and the 13th Amendment, it is also the foundation of the idea behind women's rights, broader civil rights, and I would argue that Lincoln, both in his Gettysburg Address and his second inaugural address, commits the United States to equality in a way that was not guaranteed before the Civil War.
How long did the blockade around the South last?
The blockade is a huge factor in the North winning the war. There were always blockade runners that could get through. The last major blockading port to be closed so that nothing could get in or out was Wilmington, North Carolina in January of '65. The blockade itself will continue until June, well after Lee is surrendered in April of '65. Galveston, Texas will continue to take ships in and out. Almost as soon as the South surrenders, though, the normal transport in and out does open. It starves the South for money more than it does for anything else.
Did they have repeater rifles during the Civil War?
We're at the very moment of the birth of multiple shot weapons. In 1865, they actually test a version of the Gatling gun in the North, which would be the first machine gun-like thing. At the Battle of Gettysburg, we have not only breech-loading weapons, but we have multiple shot weapons, 3 or 4 rounds per. For the most part, most soldiers end up using single-shot muzzle-loading weapons, but people are playing with new models. The problem was the government didn't want to spend the money on what they thought were fads, and they thought breech loaders and multi-shot weapons would break down too easily and be too expensive to produce. They didn't quite get that one right.
What is key facts that helped the Union win at Shiloh?
Couple things. First, Albert Sidney Johnston, the Confederate commander, died very early in the battle. He was shot through an artery in the back of his knee. And when he died, there was considerable confusion among the Confederate leaders. Second, we don't remember Grant much anymore, but Ulysses S. Grant was one tough man. He flat refused to lose and completely was unwilling to accept defeat. So those would be my two immediate Shiloh comments.